Welcome everybody to what I think is a really exciting afternoon with the innovation market. We've run one of these before, and it's a way that we allow the KNOCA community to introduce new things and new ideas and new practices that they've brought into their work on climate assemblies or citizens assemblies more generally. We're going to have two rounds of presentations and opportunities to go to a particular breakout group. We're going to give people in the first round a chance to pitch to you for 2 minutes, and then you've got a choice which one you want to go to hear more about for 35 minutes. Then they'll give a bit of feedback about what was in their, what happened in their room, very quick, just a minute, and then we'll take a break, and then we're going to do it again. So you're going to have a chance to listen to a couple of engage with a couple of different people from different parts of Europe and beyond. Actually, we've got someone here from the States as well. And I think we should just get going, because otherwise I'm taking up valuable time. So in our first round, we're going to hear from Mirjam from G1000, the Netherlands, on the whole system in the room. Yago, who is one of the co-directors of deliberative, is going to be talking to us about a new methodology he and his colleagues have been developing for climate assemblies. And finally, Oliver, who works at the New Citizenship Foundation, will be talking to us about their rapid democracy model. And just to say, one of the ways that we chose which proposals to look at today was because of our sort of double interest in both issues around impact and issues around systems thinking. I think all of these fit in different ways into those areas of KNOCA interest at the moment. So without further ado, can I just invite Mirjam to enter the space and just to give us a 2-minute pitch on why should people come and listen to you talk about G1000?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Graham. Well, I'm Mirjam de Pagter. I know a lot of people from the last convention, right, in Copenhagen. I'm from the G1000 Foundation in the Netherlands. We do citizen assemblies about all kinds of topics. And our main focus is on rebuilding trust. So trust between citizens themselves, but also government and citizens. And that means we make some choices in our process. And if you want to know what choices, you have to join me in my breakout room. But one of the things is we focus on the whole system in the room. So that means that in part of our citizen assembly, also civil servants, politicians and employers also participate in the process. And I would love to tell you more about that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mirjam. And now handing over to Yago. You're going to tell us about your Can
you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Yago Bermejo, working in Deliberativa, Spain, Europe, designing and deliberating citizens juries, panels, assembly with the EU Commission, but also at regional scale in Spain and municipal level, working now on the CLIMAS Horizon project for the EU Commission to improve methodologies for climate assemblies. And I want to be a little bit controversial and spicy to get your attention, so forgive me for playing the devil's advocate, okay? I will now give you some generalizations which may not always be true, but could be usefully true related with climate assemblies, okay? So climate assemblies are frequently biased in their design and implementation. Both commissioners, funders, implementers, and information providers are usually biased towards the green movement, the most concerned about climate change and also, why not to say, well off. The direct consequence, one possible reason for the lack of impact could be that they do not take into account the trade-offs involved in policymaking, mainly economic aspects. As a result, they form wish lists that are easily infantilized by status quo stakeholders. This set of recommendations, aspirations, wish list is then subject to a cherry-picking process in which governments take what is already underway or planned or just vacant of, and ignore those that are not feasible from their point of view. In our CLIMAS proposal, we like to focus citizens to work on specific policy dilemmas with balanced governance beyond the environmentalist, to allow enough time to focus deliberation so that the trade-offs can be assessed. The CLIMAS method also includes a cross-cutting impact driver, which avoids citizens falling into vague ideas about areas that are usually already explored by public policy and tries to focus them on the transformative and specific ones. In this way, we argue it could be easier to make effective and impactful proposals which, after analyzing the trade-offs and the necessary compensations to ensure that the final recommendations are taken seriously. And thank you, and I hope you are interested to come to my room.
Thank you so much, Yago. And our third and final one for this round, because Phoebe's not with us, is Oliver.
I want to go to Yago. That sounds amazing. But however, let me share what we've been working on. So I'm Oliver Holtaway. I'm the research director at New Citizenry Project. So we've been working on this model of rapid democracy for about 4 years. It's still a work in progress, although we are about to kind of publish a report on it in the kind of coming weeks and months. So it'd be great to get some kind of feedback on kind of testing our thinking on it. Essentially, it's driven by 3 big questions. First of all, how can we involve more people in deliberative decision making? So how can we bring more ideas and perspectives to the table by blending the best of all the kind of existing and emerging participatory processes? So situating citizens' assemblies and other kind of sortition-based approaches within kind of wider and more open and dynamic processes. So rather than kind of having lots of kind of, fish bowls dotting the landscape, little kind of isolated examples of deliberative processes, those citizen assemblies can become kind of crucibles where wider energy kind of gathers and forms and is kind of taken forward. That's kind of the first question. Second question is, how can we design participatory processes that make space for citizens to actually have a role in performing the decision or enacting the plan? Because of course, issues like climate change require a response from all different kinds of system actors. And finally, how can we blend the best of deliberative democracy with the best of representative democracy? So how do we actually help democratic leaders get comfortable with the idea of deliberation, to trust the people, but actually to equip them to trust the people, while still kind of giving a role to representative democracy in that, rather than simply presenting deliberative democracy as a kind of alternative to democratic democracy. So yeah, you can see our kind of 5-phase model there. I won't explain it to you now, but if you join me, I will explain it in more detail.
Great, thank you very much. So Mirjam, do you just want to pop into this space just give us a feedback for a minute about any thoughts or anything that really interesting came out of your room?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting to talk about how also the whole system in the room helps the impact of the Citizens Assembly. And I had some really nice questions, but obviously we hadn't had enough time, so I have to follow up on some questions.
I think that's always going to be the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thanks, Mirjam. That's really great. And Yago, did you want to just give us a sense of what happened in your room?
Yes, I think in my group,
what you're taking away.
Yeah, I think in my group we were concerned about, because what we are suggesting is that the content group who provides the assembly with knowledge, that should be more present in the room, in the assembly, and we were concerned and how to do it in a fair way, in a balanced way. And we were discussing, for example, Alex also was saying that she had the experience of bringing experts into the small rooms to help the discussion. And also I was trying to focus that this is the sensible part of this is to be balanced and to be fair, so not to bias the conversation. And every time you bring an input, you need to bring also the negative trade-off related with that input. So be critical with every input you have to the assembly. And I think this one, and there was other points in the discussion, but this could be one of them.
Thanks so much, Yago. And Oliver, any thoughts you want to take out from your lovely guitar, by the way? I really like your guitar.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, bass. Thank you everyone for really, really great questions and challenges to the model we put forward. It's hard to sort of try to hack something up. I suppose one bit that stood out to me was because part of what we're trying to do with it is to say, how do you build support for citizens' assemblies after they made the recommendations? How do you build popular support? I think the challenge around kind of going out to consult with people around it without then creating space for it to be reversed or kind of pushed back into its box or something, I think that kind of came out as a kind of bit to look at more. And all other kinds of great, I can't summarize them all, but yeah, really, really challenges. So it was just,
I think what's great about these three the three responses is I can't summarize what happened. So that's great. That's great. So we've actually got 4 presentations in this second round, and they are going to be on Citizens Assembly Plus, No Transformation Without Implementation, from Marina, who is the founder and director of the Leibfried, I can't even pronounce that. I should practice this before. She's from Germany. The collaborative ecosystem for mass participation is going to be presented by Forrest Sparks and Philip Lindsay from the States. Future scenarios as part of the education phase of climate assemblies will be presented by Maria and Katarzyna from the Shipyard Foundation, and from Mateusz from the Field of Dialogue Foundation in Poland. And finally, Municipal Imagination will be presented by Phoebe from the UK. So let's start up with Marina. Do you want to give us a quick plug for your session?
Yes, thank you very much. So in our breakout room, we'd like to present to you and discuss with you our model Citizens Assemblies Plus, No Transformation Without Implementation. It's a new model that serves to adequately design participation processes in order to increase the impact of citizens' assemblies. We are convinced that stratified, randomly selected citizens' assemblies represent a key dominant innovation, but that in order to realize their potential to the fullest, we have to develop them together. Essential elements of Citizens Assemblies Plus are, first of all, the implementation support to ensure that the results of the CA are pursued in a democratic and transparent fashion. And the second essential element is a far-reaching involvement of different levels of actors for collective implementation, that is politics, administration, citizenship, business, science, organized, civil society, and other institutions. So on the left of this slide, you can see a diagram of one design variant of the Citizens Assembly Plus that we are currently piloting in Freiburg in Germany. And I won't go more into detail now, but I'm looking forward to do so together with you in our breakout room. Thank you.
Fantastic. And then the second presentation from Forrest or Philip. I don't know who's going to present it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much, Graham. So again, we're seeing another model right in front of you, but I want to give some past context. This ecosystem model has been created through conversations just like this with both ecosystem actors in the US, as well as things that have been organized by Graham and KNOCA and other networks. But specifically, it's all around trying to build mass participation within assemblies. And how do you do that with bottom-up actors as well? And so the assumption here is that if we want assemblies to have the systems level impact that we need, we also need to galvanize the broader public and generate multiple impact pathways for these regenerative transitions. So we'd love you all to join ours because two specific reasons. One, we won't be talking about this model in the abstract. We're giving a specific case study of how this is actually in the midst of the early design processes for an assembly process here in New York City. So your input will directly impact how this is actually being rolled out. So we'd love you guys to give that, and we'll be talking about how this connects to educational institutions. How do we connect through broader public engagement forums? And how do we build an affiliate network that builds the pressure and support for these different impact pathways? And finally, the second reason why we'd love you to join is just we hope that you guys bring critique, it invokes generative ideas so that when you're designing your own processes, you can also think about how can you go beyond the assembly. So we don't want if the assembly happens in a forest and no one hears it, did it actually happen? That's kind of the leading assumption that we have. How do we actually make these more known to the larger public?
I just love that metaphor of if no one knows about it, did it happen? That's very good. And I don't know who's presenting for the Polish team. There are 3 of you listed. Is it Maria, Katarzyna, Mateusz?
And Mateusz as well. Can we do it, both of us?
Yes.
I know we have 2 minutes, but we'll use it wisely.
And the competition is really high. I mean, hi everyone. There is a reason why the 2 of us are here. I represent the Field of Dialogue Foundation. Maria is from Shipyard Foundation based in Warsaw, Poland. and we are often partners in crime when it comes to organizing local citizen assembly for cities in Poland. And in our group, we will not share an example of the whole model, but we want to focus on one approach, on one exercise. We are looking for answer to the question of how to provide the real space in local citizen assembly for dreaming and thinking more broadly, and how to, not to go into great detail with participants straight away, but to give space for vision. And how to do this as a part of local citizen assembly, because we know example of future scenario exercise from national assemblies, but how to do it in the local processes. We used future scenario in this case in Rzeszów, and Marysia.
Yes, I wanted to just invite you all to our breakout room, because it is a good occasion for you to give us some critic voice as well, because in our duo there is one person who is in favor of this method and one who is not so much in favor, and we would like to share this this with you, and to ask you for some recommendations about this. Is it a go or is it a no?
Fantastic. So you can have you can have actual impact on an actual assembly decision making here if we do this. Okay. So just before we go to Phoebe, I just want to say there was a note that someone was asking, could the presenters in their room record their session, because you've got control? Could you record your session, because other people would like to hear about it, and we're happy to provide those videos to people if you're willing to record. It's completely up to the person running the room. We're not in control of the room. So anyway, Phoebe, we lost you, and you're back. We thought you were going to be in the first round, but you're in the second round now. That's absolutely fine.
Thank you so much for your flexibility. I'm really excited to be here. I've admired and loved KNOCA from afar. I hope I pronounced that well. We're now at a more humane 6 a.m. Here in Berkeley, where I'm calling from. And so the session that we'll be focusing on is called, I've renamed it Imagination in Citizen Assemblies, but I think originally it talked about municipal imagination. I mean, these two are kind of two sides of the same coin. And really briefly, when you hear the word imagination, you might think, okay, great, fantasy, frivolous, daydreaming, storytelling, great. But actually, what my organization, Moral Imaginations, has been dedicating the last 4 years to is to bring rigor and a seriousness to imagination practice, because actually imagination is the doorway to building empathy with other people, with future generations who haven't been born yet, with the more than human world, and actually connect to what it is we really love and find important, which is a huge part of actually speaking up in citizen assemblies. Imagination can enhance participation. We talk about it as an equalizer. Everybody has an imagination, whether you're the CEO of a big tech company or a member of a local food growing group. Everybody is guided by a vision of what kind of world they want to live in. And so it's a real equalizer. It's something that brings people together, and it creates psychological safety for people to speak up about vulnerable topics and the things they love. So we talk about this capacity of moral imagination as being a democratic muscle. It's how we connect to that sense of what's really important. And in the session, I'm going to talk through a couple of case studies where we have used this moral imagination practice and capacity in democratic and municipal contexts. So one of the big examples we'll talk about is embedding moral imagination at Camden Council, training 32 council officers to become ambassadors of moral imagination and take this skill and capacity into their work with citizens. Many of you will know Camden Council has run about 17 citizen assemblies. So really exciting work happening already in Camden, and then bringing this extra moral imagination sphere. And when we say moral imagination, we bring in future generation perspectives, more than human perspectives, and the perspectives of the past, so ancestors. So it's these three pillars. And the other case study we'll talk about is the Interspecies Council, which I think will probably be most interesting to people here. We ran the first kind of official pilot last April, having prototyped it in many workshops beforehand, with DEFRA and Policy Lab at the local community of the River Roding in East London. And this is essentially a citizens' assembly, but with more than human perspective. So people come, they represent a non-human species, they're taken through an imagination process, and then they deliberate as, say, the river and the water vole and the reeds and the sky. So I'll talk about that case study, what we found, and the evaluation, because there were some really, really interesting impacts that we found. So that's the summary. Come and find out more.
Thank you, Phoebe. How on earth do you choose? How do you choose between those four? I have no idea. It's just one of the great things about this community, that it just keeps giving with such interesting ideas. Okay, I think everyone's back. That was another really interesting session, at least the one that I was in. Let's get a little bit of feedback. Some eagle-eyed will have noticed that I've had to move. Apparently I was being too loud and enthusiastic and bothering somebody in the next room, so I've got to so I've just changed location. So Marina, did you want to just say something about the experience? It was Marina, I think, who's going to feedback from the Citizens Assemblies Plus.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it was a very, very good questions, very good comments on our model of Citizens Assemblies Plus, where we put the emphasis on the implementation phase and on how to create participatory formats in this implementation phase. And I think one learning, or I knew it before, but still it's every time it's good to hear that of course we're not the only ones thinking about these topics and these questions, and there are lots of people thinking about this follow-up process and implementation process. And so what I'd like to do, I said it in the end, is to bring it all together, and my vision is to have some kind of design help so that people who want to implement a climate assembly or a citizens assembly have some kind of design help that helps them think the process through until the end, until the implementation phase, so that it doesn't stop in the middle.
I think that's well said. I think we've done so much on the design of citizens assemblies themselves, and nothing much on the structures around them. So I completely agree with that. Forrest, are you coming in, or?
Yeah, no, I can give a few. The ones that stood out to me the most, which I just think is like, one, really looking at our funding and making sure that if we're going to be doing mass engagement, you need to have proper funding to do that, and really making sure that comes across. Secondly, just the multiple, by having multiple impact pathways, not just recommendations that come to decision makers, that also has the threat of diluting the attention of what comes out of the assembly, and making sure that you have evaluation and or like proper focusing mechanisms to be able to see if these impact pathways are creating that change. And then finally, making sure in setting the agenda, and throughout, like, if we're going to have these multiple impact pathways and multiple stakeholders that we're looking to engage, again, not just decision makers, how do you articulate value propositions for them at the beginning of the process, throughout the process? So again, it doesn't just become this, like the assembly said this and do it, but like, how do you make sure that we're really thinking about how this is building a regenerative ecosystem and thinking about those value propositions? So very fruitful. I'm super thankful for everybody's engagement and questions.
Fantastic. Great stuff, Forrest. That sounds great. Mateusz from Poland, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. We didn't have time to to finish our group in the proper way, but we had really great conversation with great voices, and also a space for sharing the experience of the methods from other processes. For example, Bjorn dropped a specific method, well described one, a scenario workshop, which can be used to refresh the model of local citizen assembly. Also, Yago told us about his methodology. So be sure that you have time to record, to view the recording, and I think there is a lot of great examples of using future scenario. And also we had some discussion about the way of using future scenario, because future scenario could be an opportunity to also talk about the values of participants and also values of the common good, and also could be a way to talk about the political view of for society. So it could be really great beginning of citizen assembly, but also the use of future scenario should be really close to the use of foresight. So maybe don't exaggerate. I mean, don't make it too expertise, because that will dominate. And maybe it's better to give the participants space to shape the scenario, not only to listen to scenario and judging the scenario, expert scenario, but also space for shaping them. So that's few takeaways from our group. Thank you so much for that.
No worries. Just quick question: did we help you make your decision as to whether you should do it or not?
Absolutely. It will be harder, but yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so not only did we help you make the decision, but we've made it more difficult for you. Okay, that's really good. That's a good outcome. And Phoebe.
Hi. Yes, we had a great conversation, really good questions. I can talk about the two questions that we went into most deeply. So the first one was about how do you, somebody asking about how to bring these kind of radical imaginative practices to diverse audiences, people who maybe aren't so comfortable with going beyond a pragmatic evidence-based conversation. And we've worked with people from different sides of the political spectrum, communities, people who have not gone through even secondary school education, all the way to policymakers and very senior professionals that really have experienced a very diverse range of contexts. And so we talked about what are the kind of qualities and the practices, but also the gestalt or the confidence, what kind of confidence is needed to host a session that really takes people out of their comfort zones. When you're asking somebody to bring the voice of the European eel into policymaking, it's definitely, it needs some work around making that even comfortable and not feel, like acting, which is not what we want. We want this to be a way to connect more deeply to what is true. And the other question was around bringing the Interspecies Council to the national level, the National Citizens Assembly, particularly in Estonia. What would be the pitfalls or the challenges of that? Could it work on that national scale? And the last question, actually, which kind of expanded it out, the final scale was, okay, but what about these interspecies councils on a global scale? Do you need people all to be connected locally to a particular place or a river or somewhere where they can actually relate to each other? And I shared about how actually in the development of the Interspecies Council, we started with much more global facing groups. So actually it was people from all around the world, from India, New Zealand, Canada, bringing their connection to their own environment and connecting around their connectedness, but not around a common place. So we went into quite, the intricacies of the practice and how to do that in different environments. It seems like most people were most interested in the Interspecies Council more than the future generations and the future visioning. So yeah, that was also interesting to note. Yeah,
that's really interesting. Thanks so much, Phoebe. Listen, this has been hopefully you've really enjoyed the last couple of hours. I realized that it only allowed you to dip into a couple of things that were going on. Hopefully you'll be able to make some connections with other people who you were interested in. Just to say that we're going to, so first of all, I just want to thank everybody who participated, the people who presented, DBT, my colleagues at the Danish Board of Technology who pulled this all together. I think it's a really, and great, and thank you for all of you for participating. I think it's a really great way of trying to share some of the emerging practice. We're going to be a little quiet for 3 or 4 weeks now. We've got a retreat for the project, but also just to let you know, on the 10th of April, so something in about a month's time, we're actually going to be doing a workshop on assemblies organized by civil society. So those kind of civil society initiated assemblies. We've had a few of them, like the German Climate Assembly, the UK People's Assembly for Nature, Norway is just looking at launching one at the moment. Norwegian NGOs are looking at launching one on their sovereign wealth fund. We've also had the Global Assembly. And so we're going to talk about some of the challenges involved in civil society actually leading, initiating, commissioning these processes. I think that'd be a really interesting one. And if in the intervening between now and the 10th of April, if you're feeling really sad and you're missing KNOCA, there's always our recordings. Just out of connected to what we've already heard, we only a few weeks ago ran a workshop on hearing the voices of non-human nature and future generations. Ages ago, very early in when we started, we ran a workshop on scenarios and backcasting, and we've also got a recording, I think, on we definitely got a recording on follow-up, although that mainly just focuses on public authorities. So if you are missing us, there's plenty to keep you occupied until the 10th of April. Won't be seeing many of you, but hope you have a good few weeks. And thank you again, everybody, for participating. This has been a lot of fun and really interesting. Take care, everyone.